Hello and welcome. Today I will be presenting a mini module called Communicate with Stakeholders. Communicate with Stakeholders represents the fourth installment of 8 mini modules of the Leading Healthcare Improvement curriculum. It will provide you with some strategies to help you communicate effectively with stakeholders and ultimately increase the effectiveness of your QI project. After you develop your project's vision statement, share it with your stakeholders to inspire and motivate others. The specific purpose of this mini module is to help you learn some strategies for communicating effectively with stakeholders and learn how to address any communication breakdowns that arise during your project. Let's begin with revisiting the LHI model and where this module fits within the overall process of implementing your project. As you may remember, here are the main topics we will discuss throughout the LHI course. Today, we will continue with Communicate with Stakeholders. Let's now review where we are on the LHI project template. Last time, we focused on working within an interprofessional team to develop an effective vision statement. Now, we will focus on communicating that vision. The LHI tool called the Stakeholder Matrix can help you consider how to tailor your message for each individual stakeholder and how to select which method of communication may be the most effective for that stakeholder. For example, the Stakeholder Matrix can help you consider questions such as whether it might be best to email the stakeholder or submit updates to a quarterly department newsletter. Learning how to effectively communicate with stakeholders can help you from the planning stage throughout the duration of your project. At the beginning of your project, you started by creating a vision for change. This often involves thinking about the future and rallying everyone with the end in mind. But before going into action, you need a plan to determine how you will get there. When preparing your value propositions and communicating your vision, you will run into real-world challenges. By planning ahead and preparing your value proposition, you will help your project succeed. Let's take a closer look at the Stakeholder Matrix to see how it can help you with your communication plan. Knowing your stakeholders allows you to adjust your value proposition for each stakeholder, which in turn helps you shift the message and the method of delivery for different stakeholders. Think back to the work that you did at the very beginning for Generate Urgency. Consider, what is the stakeholder's job? What are their pains or challenges? What are their gains or areas where they can have a win? Maybe one of their pains is how your proposed innovation will impact them going forward. We'll talk next about some specific tips for communicating with stakeholders. Before asking your stakeholders to be involved in your project, it is important to be prepared by understanding what matters to each stakeholder and how they like information presented. You can find out what is important to them by talking with them, asking questions, asking someone who knows them well, or observing how they talk about their pains and gains. Be sure to ask the stakeholder how they would like the information presented. For example, some stakeholders will prefer to communicate via email, while others will be more receptive to a PowerPoint presentation. Still, others will be most influenced by a brief one-on-one conversation. The stakeholder's workload will also likely influence how and when you approach them. When communicating with your stakeholder, be ready to present them with a clear and specific ask that is tailored to their needs and interests. Knowing your stakeholders' preferences and needs can help you communicate effectively throughout your project, from your initial pitch all the way to project sustainment. As you can see from the Stakeholder Matrix, knowing about your stakeholders' experiences and preferences can help you shape your long-term strategy for communication. Use this information to make a sustainability plan for communicating with your stakeholders. For example, how will you continue to keep stakeholders informed? What modality will you use? And how frequently will you contact them? You will need to revisit and reevaluate your plan at different stages of your project. Next, we'll review some tips for communicating your message effectively. Because some of your encounters with stakeholders will be impromptu, you will need to be prepared to communicate about your project when the opportunity arises. Here are some tips for communicating your vision to stakeholders. Keep it simple. Remove jargon or discipline-specific terms so you can communicate with a broad audience. Use metaphors, analogies, and examples when possible to make your message more meaningful. Use a variety of different forums to communicate the vision, such as meetings, emails, and newsletters. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Repetition will increase stakeholders' retention of your message and opportunities to engage with your project. Team leaders need to exemplify the change. Address inconsistencies explicitly to clear up potential misconceptions and model transparency in leadership. Listen to your stakeholders. This demonstrates that you value them and gives you valuable information for your project. Let's look next at some mistakes to avoid when communicating with stakeholders. Here are a list of communication mistakes to avoid. In general, individuals start to disengage from messaging that is unclear, unfocused, and not perceived as personally relevant. If there is too much jargon or the material is too vague, people often disengage. Material that is dry or boring won't keep your audience's attention. People need to feel emotionally engaged and invested. Communication failures also occur when the message is not delivered to everyone in a manner that filters out the noise and conveys the urgency. One way to avoid these pitfalls is to know your audience before you present your pitch and practice your pitch with a trusted colleague or friend to ensure that it is engaging. Communicating a message for change can be difficult, but practice can improve your message's potency and impact. Speaking with stakeholders takes practice. Even when you're speaking with a stakeholder that you have spoken with before, it is still important to evaluate how the interaction went well and where it could improve. You can do this through self-reflection and asking a trusted colleague to give you feedback on the interaction. You may be talking with the same stakeholders across different projects, but the way you communicate about each project may be different. Each interaction is a new opportunity to improve your communication skills and refine your message. Today, we have discussed some strategies for communicating effectively with stakeholders and tips for how to address any communication breakdowns that may arise during your project. We hope that you have found this helpful. Thank you for taking the time to watch this mini module, and we look forward to seeing you soon.